Story 1. The room that vanished. You ever walk into a room and just feel like something's off? Not creepy at first, just off. That's what I felt when I checked into the Creekside Motel just off Highway 14 in Oregon. It was late, and I'd been driving for 11 hours straight. The neon sign flickered like a dying firefly, and the front office smelled like someone had smoked 1,000 cigarettes too many. But I was too tired to care. I paid for one night. The old man behind the desk didn't ask questions, just handed me a heavy brass key labeled Room 12 and pointed a crooked finger toward the far end of the motel. Room 12 was strange. From the outside, it looked normal. Beige door, small window with a faded curtain. But the moment I stepped inside, something shifted. The temperature dropped sharply. The air felt thick, almost syrupy, and it smelled like dust and mothballs. I tried to flick on the light switch, but the bulb buzzed and flickered before dying entirely. No problem, I thought. I'll use the bathroom light. That one worked, casting a pale yellow glow across the carpet. I set my bag down and sat on the edge of the bed. The springs groaned like they hadn't moved in years. That's when I noticed the mirror. It was on the far wall, opposite the bed, tall, with a wooden frame. Not fancy, but the reflection didn't match. I stared, confused. I could see myself. I could see the bed. But the rest of the room looked wrong. The lamp was in the wrong place. The door looked like it was on the other side. And there was something else, just for a second, behind me. A shape. Tall. Dark. Still. I turned around fast. Nothing. Just the room. Silent. Empty. I chalked it up to being exhausted. I undressed, brushed my teeth, and climbed into bed. But sleep never really came. Around 2:30 a.m., I heard movement outside. Shuffling. A dragging sound. Then footsteps. Slow. Crunching on gravel. They stopped outside my room. I held my breath. The doorknob rattled. Not subtle. Like someone was really trying to get in. I shot up, heart pounding. "Who's there?" I called out, voice shaking. Silence. Then a knock. Gentle at first. Then harder. I grabbed the bedside lamp. It wasn't plugged in, but it was heavy, and crept toward the door. I peeked through the peephole. Nothing. Just darkness and the soft whir of a busted street lamp outside. I turned the lock. I opened the door an inch. No one there. But something was wrong with the view. The hallway outside looked stretched, warped, like a bad painting left in the rain. The doors weren't aligned properly. The ground looked too dark. I shut the door fast. And when I turned around, the mirror was gone. Gone. In its place, just a flat wall. Beige paint, cracked and peeling slightly. I stood there for maybe 5 full minutes, heart hammering. Then I thought, I'm out. Screw this. I grabbed my bag, opened the door again, and outside was not the motel. It was woods. Deep woods. Pine trees, fog creeping between the trunks, cold air biting at my skin. This wasn't Oregon. This wasn't anywhere I'd ever been. I turned to close the door behind me. It was gone. Not just shut, gone. No wall. No motel. Nothing but trees. Silence. Cold. I spun around in a panic. My phone was dead. The time on my watch blinked midnight. Then I heard the whispering. Not English. Not any language I knew. Just voices, soft and distant, circling through the fog. I ran. I didn't care where. Just away. Through the trees, tripping over roots, breath sharp in my chest. I ran until I collapsed at the base of a fallen log. The whispering stopped. I sat there for hours. shivering, trying to stay awake. Eventually, morning light broke through the trees. Birds chirped. Everything looked normal. I found a ranger station by late afternoon. Told them I was lost. They found my car parked behind a diner 40 miles away. The Creekside Motel didn't exist. Not in their records. Not on Google. Not even in old local directories. Room 12? Never happened. But I remember. The mirror. The warped hallway. The whispering. And every night since, I wake up at exactly 2:30 a.m. to the sound of footsteps outside my door. Story 2. The hotel room that knows your name. I should have trusted my gut. It was just supposed to be one night. Stop off, sleep, and keep driving. I was moving across the country for a new job in Chicago, and I'd been behind the wheel for over 12 hours. I wasn't picky. I just wanted a bed and a hot shower. I found the White Pine Lodge off a narrow stretch of I-55 in Illinois. It had that eerie Midwestern charm. An old building that had seen better decades, with yellowed siding and hanging flower baskets full of dead plants. There were maybe 6 rooms total, with no visible cars in the parking lot. I almost kept driving, but a sudden wall of fog rolled in behind me, and something told me I wasn't going to get much farther that night. Inside, the woman at the front desk didn't even look up when I entered. She was scribbling something in a ledger, humming a slow, tuneless melody under her breath. "Need a room," I said. Without lifting her eyes, she reached for a key on a pegboard behind her, room 3, and slid it across the counter. "No pets. Don't unplug the TV. Stay inside after dark," she said. That last part stuck with me. Stay inside after dark. Like I was renting a room from a horror movie witch. But again, I was exhausted, and my standards were pretty much underground by then. Room 3 was halfway down the narrow hallway, across from a window that looked out into the fog. When I stepped in, I immediately noticed something weird. The TV was on. Volume low. Static. White noise. I tried to turn it off, but it wouldn't budge. The power button did nothing. I checked the cord. It was buried deep in the wall. No plug, no outlet. I gave up and unpacked a bit, then headed to the bathroom. That's when I noticed my name, written in the fog on the mirror. Just 5 letters. Aaron. I froze. I hadn't said my name to the woman at the desk. It wasn't on the key. I hadn't signed anything. I wiped the mirror clean, chalked it up to coincidence, or a prank. But the feeling in my stomach told me something wasn't right. After my shower, I sat on the bed. The sheets were stiff, and the comforter looked older than I was. The static from the TV was louder now, even though I hadn't touched it. The sound wasn't quite white noise anymore. It had texture, like whispers hidden inside. I moved closer, trying to make it out. It was saying my name, whispering. Layered voices. Some deep, some high-pitched. All whispering. "Aaron! Aaron!" I yanked the TV off the stand. It crashed to the floor, but the noise didn't stop. It kept whispering, even louder. I shoved my bag over the screen and backed into the corner. My heart was pounding so hard it echoed in my ears. I tried to call someone, anyone, but my phone had 0 signal. Not. Low. Not. 1 bar. 0. That's when the lights flickered. First dim, then strobing. And then, everything shut off. The static. The lights. Even the hum of the heater. Pitch black. Total silence. I stood there for what felt like a full minute before I heard it. A knock. Not on the door. From inside the closet. My whole body tensed. I didn't move. Not an inch. Another knock. 3 slow raps. Something was definitely in there. Then a voice. Low. Male. My voice. Aaron, let me out. I lost it. Ran for the door, turned the handle. It wouldn't budge. The knob spun freely in my hand. It didn't click. It didn't lock. It just spun like it wasn't connected to anything at all. Then the closet door opened behind me. Creaked open. I turned slowly. The closet was dark, but something stepped out. Something my height, my build, wearing my face. But wrong. Too symmetrical. Eyes too black. Skin pale like wax. It looked at me and smiled. You shouldn't have come here, it said. Now you stay in the closet. And before I could scream, it lunged. I woke up in the bathtub, fully clothed, soaked in ice water. The room was back to normal. The TV was off, smashed on the floor. My phone had service again. The time read 6:04 a.m. I bolted. Didn't even stop at the front desk. Just ran to my car, sped off the lot, and didn't stop driving until I crossed state lines. Later that night, I got a text from an unknown number. Just one message. Enjoying room 3? Closet's open. Miss you. I blocked it. Changed my number. But sometimes, late at night, I hear knocking from my hallway closet. And sometimes, I hear my voice behind the door. Story 3. I rented a cabin that wasn't there yesterday. I wasn't looking for trouble. I just wanted peace. After everything that happened with my ex and the burnout from my job, I needed a real escape. Somewhere off-grid. Somewhere quiet. So I booked a secluded cabin on a rental site I'd never used before. One with no reviews, no detailed description, just a listing called Sunridge Hollow, cabin for one. It popped up during a late-night search like it was meant for me. The only photo was a black and white shot of a small cabin in the woods with the caption, No neighbors, no interruptions, just you. It was cheap, way too cheap, but I booked it anyway. When I arrived, I had to double-check my map. The drive took me deep into the Colorado forest, and there were no signs for Sunridge Hollow. Eventually, I found a narrow dirt road with a handmade wooden sign nailed to a tree. Don't stay, I laughed, nervously. 10 minutes down that path, the trees cleared slightly, and the cabin came into view. Exactly like the photo. Small, single-story, dark wood with one window, and a crooked chimney. But something was off. I couldn't place it. It looked too new and too old at the same time. The wood was polished, but the steps creaked like they'd rot underfoot. There were no tire tracks. No footprints. Nothing to suggest anyone had ever stayed there. Still, I had reception for the first time in hours. I checked the booking again. Gone. The listing wasn't there anymore. Not on my profile. Not in my emails. Not even in my browser history. I decided to stay anyway. I'm not proud of that. The inside was plain. One bed. One fireplace. No power, but there was a lantern and a stack of dried logs. The window was covered with a thick curtain nailed shut from the top. I tried to peek out but couldn't get it open. Then I noticed something weird on the nightstand. A notebook. Thick. Leather-bound. And already written in. The first page said, If you're reading this, you've already made the mistake. Don't open the window. Don't go outside after dark. And whatever you do, don't sleep facing the mirror. I looked around slowly. There was a mirror. On the wall opposite the bed. Oval. Antique. Its surface cloudy and chipped at the edges. The reflection showed the bed, but not me. I should have left, but the sun was setting. Fast, like unnaturally fast. I lit the lantern and tried to distract myself. reading more entries in the notebook. They were dated, each from different guests. None had names, just stories. Some claimed they heard scratching at the door. Others said they saw people watching from the trees. One said the mirror showed him things he hadn't done yet, but soon would. And every entry ended the same way. I heard it breathing. Behind me. In the mirror. I turned. That was the last thing I remember. The wind picked up outside. I swear I heard voices in it. Whispers just under the howl. I put the notebook away and turned the mirror to face the wall. But the moment I did, the lantern went out. Darkness swallowed the room. The kind of darkness that feels thick, like it's pushing down on you. I fumbled for my phone, dead, completely drained. I reached for the matches to relight the lantern when I heard it, breathing. Not mine. Not from the door. From the mirror. Right behind me. Slow. Wet. Shallow. I didn't move. I couldn't. I felt the temperature drop until I could see my own breath in front of me. Then a voice whispered directly into my ear. You turned me away. I spun around and struck a match. The mirror was back on the wall, facing me. And now it showed my reflection. But the version in the glass wasn't still. It was grinning, smiling from ear to ear. I slammed the notebook shut, grabbed my bag, and tried to open the front door, but it was gone. Just wood. Seamless wall. No knob. No frame. I ran to the window and pried at the curtain. Nailed shut. I tore at the fabric. Nothing. The room felt smaller, tighter, and in the reflection, I wasn't alone anymore. There were people behind me. Shadowy figures, all smiling, all waiting. The breathing grew louder, closer. I backed into a corner and closed my eyes, whispering, "This isn't real. This isn't real. This isn't real." I must have passed out. When I woke, it was morning. The door was back. The mirror was gone. The notebook had vanished. I stumbled outside into the sun and bolted down the trail to my car. I didn't stop driving until I reached Denver. I tried to find the listing again, just to prove to myself I hadn't imagined it. But when I checked my account history, there was only one note under my reservations tab. No neighbors. No interruptions. Just you. And a new line beneath it. We hope you enjoyed your stay. You'll be back soon. Story 4. The basement room I wasn't supposed to find. I moved into the place because it was cheap. That's how these stories always start, right? A too good to be true listing on Craigslist. A quiet street in a quiet town. A house that needed just a little work, but was full of character. Rent was $400 a month, all utilities included. I was desperate and stupid and didn't ask the right questions. The house was owned by a woman named Ruth. Mid-70s, hunchback, hands that looked like they'd spent a lifetime kneading dough or burying bones, depending on the lighting. She greeted me on the porch the day I moved in and gave me one rule. Stay out of the basement. No explanation. No eye contact. Just that one sentence, and then she handed me the keys and went back into her own part of the house. There was no door to the basement on the main floor. No obvious way in. I figured it was behind a locked door somewhere, or maybe sealed off. I didn't care. I had my own room, a tiny kitchen, and most importantly, peace. For about a week, things were normal. But then the floorboard started to vibrate at night. Softly at first, like a truck was passing nearby. But the vibrations came every night at exactly 3:11 a.m., and they lasted exactly 33 seconds. I timed it. After the third night, I asked Ruth if she felt them too. She just smiled without showing her teeth and said, "Some doors open themselves." That night, the humming started. Low frequency, like a generator in the walls. It came from below, and I realized there was a basement. I just hadn't found the way down yet, and I wanted to. The next day, I looked harder. I pulled up corners of rugs, tapped on walls, checked every creaky cabinet. Nothing. Until I opened the pantry. It was a tight space with 3 shelves and a peeling linoleum floor. But something about the back wall seemed off. The grain of the wood ran sideways, like it didn't match the rest. I pressed against it, and it shifted. A thin, vertical crack opened. There was a handle. Cold metal. I hesitated for a long time. Then I pulled. Behind the false panel was a staircase. Narrow. No lights. The air that poured up from below was heavy and sour, like wet earth and rot. I should have closed it. I should have pretended I never saw it. Instead, I grabbed my phone for a flashlight and started down. The steps groaned under my weight. Each one dipped slightly, like they weren't used to being walked on. Cobwebs brushed my face. The walls were damp. By the time I hit the bottom, my flashlight flickered. And then I saw it. A single room. Unfinished. Concrete walls. Dirt floor. And a bed. A rusted iron frame in the center of the room, with a mattress that looked older than the house. Stained. Torn. On the floor beside it was a child's stuffed rabbit, missing one eye, soaked in something dark and dried. I was about to turn back when I saw something scrawled on the wall in what looked like black paint. "We live in the hush. You brought noise." Then I heard breathing. Not mine. From the corner of the room. I turned, phone shaking in my hand. A figure stood there, pale, thin, eyes reflecting the light like an animal. No hair, no mouth, just watching. It didn't move. But I couldn't stop looking at it. My phone buzzed suddenly. A notification. "Ruth, 1:03 a.m. you were told." The figure took a step forward. I ran. I don't remember climbing the stairs. I just remember slamming the pantry shut, dragging the fridge in front of it, and not sleeping a second that night. The next morning, Ruth was gone. No trace of her. Her room was empty. Closet full of dust and cobwebs. Her dishes were still in the sink. Her wallet was on the counter. But no Ruth. I called the police. They did a search. Found nothing. Didn't believe me about the basement. Because when they opened the pantry, the panel was gone. Just solid wall. No seam. No door. Nothing. But every night since, at exactly 3:11 a.m., the floor vibrates beneath me. The sound comes up from below. And in my dreams, I see the message written again and again. "We live in the hush. You brought noise. You owe us now." Story 5. The motel that didn't exist in the morning this happened a year ago, and I still can't find proof the place was ever real. I was driving from Flagstaff to a small town in northern Arizona to visit my brother. It was late, later than I should have been on the road, and I missed a turn somewhere. GPS glitched, signal dropped, and I found myself on a 2-lane desert road, surrounded by nothing but scrub brush and old telephone poles. At about 1 a.m., I saw a glowing sign through the darkness. Red Mesa Inn, vacancy. It was like a beacon. A perfectly preserved roadside motel, glowing neon red and green. The parking lot was empty except for one old pickup, rusted and covered in dust. I figured it was just the night manager. The office was quiet. I rang the bell, and a woman appeared almost instantly from the back, young, polite, in an old-fashioned bellhop uniform, which I thought was a weird touch. She didn't say much. Just handed me a room key, room 8, and told me breakfast would be served if I stayed through the night. I laughed at that. Now I wish I hadn't. Room 8 was at the far end of the row. The door was stiff, like it hadn't been opened in a long time. Inside, the decor looked dated, not retro, authentically old, like 1960s television set old. Rotary phone, plastic-covered Bible on the nightstand, yellow wallpaper curling at the edges. I set my stuff down and went to wash up. The faucet spat out brown water for the first 5 seconds before clearing up. I splashed my face, trying to shake off the road fatigue. When I looked in the mirror, I saw something strange. Behind me, on the bed, someone was sitting. I turned fast. No one there. I checked the hallway. Empty. I told myself it was just the mirror playing tricks. That maybe I saw my own shape. Or maybe I was that tired. But the bedspread, it had a dent in it, like someone had just been sitting there. I didn't sleep. I lay in bed with the lamp on, staring at the ceiling, listening to the low hum of silence outside, until 3:33 a.m. That's when the TV turned on by itself. Just snow. Static. I got up to turn it off, and the screen changed. It wasn't a show. It was me. A live feed of me, standing in front of the TV, staring at myself. Except, something was wrong with the reflection. The version of me on the screen wasn't mirroring my movements. I stepped left. It stepped right. I stepped back. It stepped closer. Then it smiled. I reached for the plug, yanked it from the wall. The screen stayed on. The me, inside the TV, lifted one hand and tapped the glass from the inside. 3 taps. Then the sound came back, but not static this time. Voices. Dozens of them, whispering the same word over and over. Stay. I backed out of the room and into the hallway. It was different now. Longer. The exit that was once 20 feet away now stretched into darkness. And the other doors? They were open. Every single one of them. From each room, someone stood in the doorway, watching, unmoving. Some old, some young, all pale as bone, with wide eyes and mouths slightly open. They didn't move, just stared. Then they began to speak, all at once. Perfect unison. You checked in. Now you check out. We never did. So neither will you. I ran, sprinted down the hallway, past the watchers, past the flickering lights, past the reception desk, which was now empty. The front door wouldn't open. I kicked it, slammed my shoulder into it. It didn't budge. Then the lights went out. Every bulb. Instant darkness. And the whispering came again, from all directions. Stay. 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 I don't know how long I was in that blackness, but I eventually woke up in my car, parked on the side of the road, middle of the desert. No sign of a motel. No neon sign. No building. Just sagebrush and empty space. My phone worked again. GPS showed I was 20 miles from anything. I drove the rest of the way in silence. I tried searching for Red Mesa Inn. Nothing. No listings. No photos. Not even on old map records. But sometimes, when I drive alone late at night, I see that same flickering red and green neon sign in the distance. And once, just once, I swear I heard a tap on the inside of my car window. 3 taps. Story 6. The room number that shouldn't exist. This wasn't even supposed to be an overnight stay. I was at a work conference in Minneapolis, booked at a Hilton downtown. Big hotel, glass elevators, and a dozen floors of corporate misery. I was only supposed to stay for the day's meetings and catch a late flight out, but a blizzard rolled in unexpectedly, grounding all air traffic. The front desk was swamped with stranded people. I was lucky. I'd already checked in to use the room for a few hours. Room 813. They extended my stay with no problem, rekeyed my card, and told me to settle in. I went back to 813, threw my briefcase down, and turned on the TV. Snow pounded against the window, visibility dropping to nothing. At one point, I thought I saw movement outside, shadows sliding across the snow, circling the building, but I figured it was just drifting clouds. The weird part started around midnight. I couldn't sleep, so I got up, made coffee, and stepped into the hallway just to stretch my legs. The hotel was dead quiet. No voices, no footsteps. The kind of stillness that makes you feel like the last person on earth. Then I noticed a door at the far end of the hall. Room 814. That shouldn't have caught my attention, except I knew that wasn't the next room. I distinctly remembered 813 being at the end of the hallway. There was number 814. There had never been. I even remembered the wall where it had ended, clean and featureless. But now there was a door. No people. No keycard reader. Just a black placard with white numbers, 814. And below that, scratched into the paint was something sharp. This room is not yours. I should have walked away, but something compelled me. I reached out and touched the doorknob. Ice cold. Then it turned. On its own. Click. The door creaked open 2 inches, just enough for me to see pitch blackness inside. No furniture. No lights. Just a shape in the dark. Tall. Thin. Standing perfectly still. Before I could move, the door slammed shut. I stumbled back, heart racing. When I got back to 813, I could still feel the cold in my hand. I checked the map on the back of my door. It listed the rooms in my wing. 812. 813. End of hallway. No mention of 814. I went to bed. That's when the scratching started. From the shared wall. Long, slow drags. Like claws or metal scraping down drywall. Then tapping. Tap. 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 I turned on the TV to drown it out. It didn't help. At 2:14 a.m., my room phone rang. I didn't want to answer it, but I did. No voice on the other end. Just breathing. Ragged. Wet. Then a whisper, so faint I could barely hear it. Why did you touch the door? Click. I didn't sleep at all. I left at sunrise and told the front desk I needed to check out immediately. I couldn't bring myself to mention 814, but I had to know. So I asked the desk agent, casually, what rooms were on the 8th floor. She smiled and pulled up the list on her screen. Room 801 through 813. That was it. I asked if there had ever been an 814. Her smile faded. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "There is no room 814, sir." There never was. I left. Got on the next flight out. Didn't look back. But here's the part that still haunts me. A week later, I got a manila envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a key card. Black. On the back, it just said, "We saw you. You're already checked in." And taped to the card was a torn corner of a hotel room map, with one room circled in red, 814.
Story 7. The hidden floor. Nobody talks about this. Happened when I was 19. I was staying in a rundown urban apartment building near the outskirts of St. Louis, one of those mid-century towers that once looked sleek and modern, now faded and forgotten. My friend Mike had a cousin who rented a unit there, and we were crashing with him for the weekend while we hit a few concerts in the city. The building had a strange vibe from the moment we walked in. The walls were yellowed from age or cigarette smoke, and the elevator had this sickly hum that buzzed through your teeth. The floor buttons inside were cracked and sticky. But here's what struck me immediately: there was no 13th floor. It went from 12, straight to 14. I know that's not unusual, some places skip 13 for superstition. But the elevator still paused between those two floors. Every single time. Like it stopped, shuddered slightly, and then kept going. The first time I noticed it, I made a joke about ghost tenants. Mike's cousin, Shane, didn't laugh. "Don't F*** around with that," he said. "Don't ask about 13. Don't try the stairs. And if you ever get a call from a floor that's not supposed to be there, don't answer." That night, I woke up at 2:46 a.m. to the sound of the elevator dinging in the hallway. I got up and peeked through the peephole. The elevator doors were open. Nobody stepped out. It just stayed open. Longer than it should have. And inside, just barely visible, was the button for floor 13, glowing red. I stared at it until the doors closed. When I mentioned it in the morning, Shane said nothing. Just packed a small backpack and left the apartment for most of the day. Wouldn't answer texts. That evening, curiosity got the better of me. When nobody was around, I took the elevator alone. I pressed 12. Then 14. Just to see if it would pause. Sure enough, it did. Right between them. It buzzed, flickered, and trembled just slightly. And I swear, just for a second, the display showed 13, then it changed to 14, and the doors opened. I should have left it alone. But the next night, I tried again. This time, I pressed the door hold button when we stopped at the phantom floor. And the doors slid open. Not fast. Not smooth. Like they hadn't opened in years. And what I saw chilled me. The hallway was identical to the others, same green carpeting, same beige walls. But darker. Dirtier. The lights were dimmed, some flickering. But the rooms? The doors had no numbers. Just scratches. Long, deep grooves like someone had dragged their fingers, or something sharper, down the wood. And the sound? It was so quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. The kind that presses in from all sides. Like the whole floor was holding its breath. I stepped out. Just for a second. My shoes crunched over something. I looked down, broken glass. Picture frames. One of them showed a blurry photo of what looked like the building lobby, but everyone's faces were scratched out. Suddenly I heard a door creak open behind me. Then another. And another. Not fast. One by one. Slow. Intentionally. I turned to run back to the elevator, just as the doors closed. Trapping me. I pounded on the button. Nothing. That's when the footsteps began. Soft at first. Then more of them. Shuffling. Dragging. Coming toward me. From all directions. I picked a hallway and ran. Every door I passed opened just slightly as I moved, each revealing something different. One had a woman standing perfectly still, her neck twisted completely around, staring with bloodshot eyes. Another had a room filled with cages, empty but shaking violently. One had a mirror, and I was in it. But my reflection was grinning, even though I wasn't. Finally, at the end of a long hallway, I found a stairwell door. It shouldn't have been there. There was no stairwell on the 13th floor. But I didn't care. I burst through it and flew down the stairs 2 at a time. When I hit the 12th floor, everything was normal again. Quiet. Lights bright. The moment I stepped out of the stairwell, my phone buzzed. A text. From an unknown number: "We noticed you visited. We never forget our guests." I told Mike and Shane I was leaving. Made up some story about a family emergency and caught the next bus out of town. But ever since, weird things keep happening in other buildings. Sometimes, when I take an elevator, the panel glitches and flashes a red 13. Sometimes I hear footsteps outside my apartment at night, dragging, slow, and when I check the peephole, the elevator door at the end of the hall is open. Waiting. Story 8, the Airbnb where the walls watched me. This happened last summer. I booked an Airbnb in Vermont, somewhere quiet, green, and far away from the city. I was burnt out from everything: work, relationships, the non-stop hum of life. I needed solitude, badly. The place was described as a secluded farmhouse built in 1890, surrounded by nature and silence. It was perfect. At first. The host, Lorraine, was polite but distant. She met me at the gate, handed over an actual iron key, no keypads or locks, and warned me about spotty Wi-Fi. "There's no signal in the woods," she said. "But the house has everything you need." She didn't lie. The house was beautiful. Hardwood floors, antique furniture, a massive fireplace. The kind of quiet that lets you hear your own breath. And that first night? I slept like I hadn't in years. But on the second night, things started getting weird. It began with the wallpaper. In the upstairs bedroom, behind the bed, there was a single wall covered in old-fashioned floral paper. Red roses, green vines, faded like sun-stained paperbacks. Something about it made me uncomfortable, but I couldn't explain why. That night, I dreamt I was lying in bed, staring at that wall, and the roses were breathing. In and out. Pulsing like lungs. The vines reached out slowly, curling toward me. I woke in a sweat, convinced I'd heard whispering. I chalked it up to stress. Just a weird dream. Until I looked at the wallpaper the next morning. One of the roses was gone. Like it had been peeled off. There was a faint mark beneath it. A circle. Just slightly darker than the wall around it. Almost like an eye. I took a picture with my phone to remind myself to show someone later. But the image? When I checked it? It was just black. No wall. No rose. No light. Just black. That night, I moved to the living room couch. I didn't sleep. The fireplace flickered oddly, like something was shifting inside the flames. The shadows it cast didn't match the room's furniture. At some point after 2 a.m., I heard footsteps upstairs. Heavy. Deliberate. But I was the only one in the house. I grabbed the iron fireplace poker and crept to the base of the stairs. Silence. Then, creak. The bedroom door opening. I ran outside into the cold night air, barefoot, heart hammering. When I turned to look up at the house, every window on the second floor was lit. Every single one. Including the guest bedroom. And in the middle window, something was standing there. Tall. Thin. Too tall. Its head brushed the top of the frame. It stood sideways, unmoving, but I could feel it watching me. The next morning, I packed. I tried not to look at the wallpaper as I left, but I did. More roses were missing. 7, to be exact. And behind each one, a slightly darker circle. 7 marks. 7 eyes. Before I drove off, I went back inside for one last look. I don't know why. And I wish I hadn't. Because as I stood in the foyer, my phone buzzed. A message from Lorraine: "I see you're leaving early. Sorry the house didn't agree with you." That wasn't what froze me. What froze me was the second message that arrived before I could respond: "They liked you, though. Especially the one in the wall." I never answered. Later, I left a 1-star review. When I checked back a few days later, the listing was gone. No record of it. No Lorraine. No address. Just gone. But every now and then, when I look at pictures I took during that trip, photos of trees, of breakfast, of me smiling in the yard, there's always something in the background. Barely visible. In the shadows. Watching. Story 9, the motel that locks from the outside. I wasn't planning to stop for the night. My cross-country drive was going smoothly, and I had a playlist loaded, snacks stocked, and enough caffeine to drown a horse. But somewhere outside Kansas, fatigue hit me like a wall. My vision blurred. I started drifting between lanes. It wasn't safe. I took the next exit and found a rundown little town that wasn't on my GPS. It had one gas station, a shuttered diner, and a squat gray building with flickering neon, Sunset Pines Motel, vacancy. I remember the sign swinging slightly, even though the air was still. The lobby was empty. No bell, no clerk. Just a dull buzzing from the overhead light and a moldy citrus smell. I was about to leave when an old man emerged from a back room. He looked like he'd been there for decades, sunken eyes, long yellowed fingernails, and a deep smoker's voice. Room 7. End of the hall. Cash only. He didn't ask for ID. Didn't give me a key either. Just motioned me down the hallway and muttered, "Don't open your door after midnight." I thought he was being weird. But I was too tired to argue. Room 7 looked like it hadn't been touched since the 70s. Orange shag carpet. A buzzing CRT television. Wallpaper curling at the edges. A single bed with a dip in the middle. But what really caught my attention? The inside of the door had no handle. Just a blank metal panel where one should be. No way to unlock it from the inside. Only a bolt and a peephole. I walked back to the lobby. "Hey, there's no way to open the door from inside," I said. The man didn't even look at me. "You won't need to. Just sleep." I should have left then. But I didn't. I wedged a chair under the knob and laid down. Sleep came in waves. Every time I drifted off, I heard something. A shuffling in the hallway. Whispering. A soft click, click. Click like nails on tile. At exactly 12:03 a.m., I heard something stop outside my door. The breathing was loud. Too loud. It wasn't human. I stared at the peephole. A shape blocked it. I couldn't see anything. Just a black void where the hall should have been. Then the doorknob rattled. Not hard. Just a soft test. Jiggle. Pause. Then a long, dragging scrape down the door. I backed away, frozen. Whatever it was stayed there, breathing. 4 hours. Eventually, I must have passed out, because I woke to sunlight seeping through the curtain. The door was open. Just a crack. Enough to see the hallway, perfectly still. When I stepped into the corridor, all the other doors were shut, except room 3. Its door was wide open, and the inside was empty. Stripped. Just a floor and walls, no furniture. Except the walls were covered in names. Etched into the paint, carved with something sharp. Names, dates. Hundreds of them. The last one said, "Do not forget me." 12:03 a.m. I ran to the lobby. The man was gone. No sign of him. No trace of my cash. No records. I left. I didn't even check out, I just got in my car and drove until the town vanished from my rearview. Weeks later, I tried looking up Sunset Pines Motel. Nothing. No listings. No town. No motel. I called the Kansas Tourism Bureau. They told me there's never been a town there. But last night, I got a postcard in the mail. No return address. Just 3 words. Room 7 soon. Story 10, the forest apartment that wasn't there yesterday. I moved into the new place because it was cheap, too cheap. $300 a month, fully furnished, utilities included. The ad had no photos, just a description that read, "Cozy 1BR, secluded, quiet, surrounded by nature. Perfect for solitude." The address led me deep into the woods, thick, towering pines and not much else. I should have turned around the second my cell signal died. But there it was. A squat concrete structure at the end of a gravel path. No other homes nearby. No mailbox. No street sign. Just a small metal plaque near the entrance that read, Unit 1. The inside looked better than expected, wooden floors, a small kitchenette, even a vintage record player. Odd, but charming. And it was spotless. Too spotless. Like it had been staged. Like no one had ever actually lived here. Still, I unpacked. I needed the escape. The first night was peaceful. No cars. No noise. Just the wind and the trees. But on the second night, I heard footsteps above me. I assumed someone lived in a second-floor unit. But when I went outside the next morning, there was no second floor. The building was a single story. Flat roof. No staircase. No ladders. Just solid gray cement. Still, I shrugged it off. Maybe it was squirrels. Or my imagination. That night, I heard the footsteps again. This time, closer. Slower. I turned off all the lights and pressed my ear to the ceiling. I could hear breathing. Not fast, not raspy. Just slow, steady, inhumanly deep breathing. It moved from one corner to the next, like something was pacing above me. Something heavy. I couldn't sleep. At sunrise, I packed my things and went outside, only to find that my car was gone. The gravel path that brought me here? Gone too. Just trees. Endless, dense forest in every direction. I walked for what felt like hours. Nothing. Not a road, not a clearing. Nothing but identical trees and silence. Eventually, I circled back to the apartment. I stood there staring, confused, angry, scared. And that's when I noticed the new detail. The metal plaque now read Unit 2. I hadn't changed units. I hadn't moved. But somehow, the number had changed. I opened the door cautiously. Everything inside looked the same, except one photo frame on the wall had been replaced. Instead of the landscape painting that was there before, now there was a picture of me. Not a selfie. It was a candid shot, taken through the front window. Me unpacking, my back turned, unaware. I ripped it off the wall and turned it over. On the back was written, "Welcome home." I tore through the unit, trying to find a phone, a signal, anything. But the record player had started spinning on its own, playing a warped, low-pitched version of a song I couldn't recognize. The windows wouldn't open. The door wouldn't lock. And every few hours, the unit number changed again. 3. 4. 5. By nightfall, it was Unit 6. And the breathing on the roof had become scratching. Long, slow, deliberate scratches, like claws against concrete. Something is getting closer. Something is circling, waiting for the right time. I've tried sleeping, but every time I do, I wake up to a different apartment layout. One day, the kitchen is gone. The next, the hallway is longer. The record player keeps playing that same broken song, and the photo of me now has someone else standing behind me. Tall. Shadowed. Smiling. If you find this note, if this story somehow makes it out, don't follow the listing. Don't come here. There is no Unit 1 anymore. I think I'm in Unit 13. And tonight, I heard the front door unlock. Story 11, the hotel that forgot to let me leave. I don't even know where to start with this one, but it's the one that haunts me the most. I still wake up sweating, certain I'm back inside that place, trapped in the endless hallways and dead-end rooms. It started on a trip to Seattle last year. I was there for a conference, had a cheap hotel booked near downtown, nothing fancy. The place was called the Riverside Inn, dated, nothing remarkable, but affordable and close to the venue. I got there late, around 1 a.m., and the lobby was quiet except for the night clerk, an older woman with tired eyes who barely acknowledged me. She handed me a keycard and a map. The map was odd. Instead of the typical hotel layout, it looked like a maze. Hallways twisted and doubled back on themselves. Several areas were crossed out in red ink, with notes scribbled in the margins like warnings. I thought it was just old staff humor until I looked at my room number. Room 617. On the map, it wasn't even marked. I shrugged it off and took the elevator up. The elevator felt sluggish, vibrating slightly as it climbed. When I stepped out on the 6th floor, the hallway stretched far longer than I expected, rows and rows of doors, most with their numbers faded or scratched out. I counted, no room 617 anywhere. Instead, I found myself staring at a door with no number. Just a small symbol carved into the wood, a circle with a slash through it. Curious, I pressed the handle. It was unlocked. Inside, the room was empty. Just a bed with a white sheet and a cracked mirror on the far wall. But as I stepped in, the door slammed shut behind me, and the handle locked itself. I tried the knob. No movement. I was trapped. I called the front desk. No answer. I called the number on the keycard envelope. Dead line. I pounded on the door. Nothing. The mirror caught my eye. In the reflection, I could see the hallway, but it was wrong. The hallway was dark and empty, no lights, no other doors. Suddenly, I saw a shadow move behind me. I spun around. Nothing. Then the shadow was on the mirror again. Closer. More defined. It had no face. Just a dark blur with long, twitching fingers. I screamed and covered my eyes. When I looked again, the room was normal. I tried the door again. Still locked. Panic set in. I spent hours banging, screaming, trying to break the mirror, but it didn't crack. Every attempt only made the shadow flicker and laugh, if it was laughing at all. A sound like broken glass grinding. Eventually, exhaustion overtook me. I fell asleep on the bed. When I woke, everything had changed. The bed was replaced with a wooden bench. The mirror was gone. The walls were now bare concrete. I approached the door. It was no longer a door. Just a solid wall. Confused, I tried to sit and gather my thoughts when I noticed something on the floor. A thin trail of black dust leading to a crack at the base of the wall. I crawled over and peered inside. Endless darkness. I felt something brush my fingers. Cold. I tried to pull back, but I heard a voice. Low. Whispering. You forgot to leave. I closed my eyes and scrambled backward. Suddenly, the door reappeared. I bolted through it, running down the endless hall. Each door I passed opened for a second, revealing distorted rooms filled with shadows reaching out, crawling on walls and ceilings. I ran faster, heart pounding, trying to find an exit. But every stairwell I tried led me back to the 6th floor. Eventually, I collapsed near a door marked exit. I opened it. Sunlight. Fresh air. Freedom. I stumbled outside, gasping for breath. The street was unfamiliar. The hotel was nowhere in sight. I asked a passerby where I was. They said, "You're in the middle of a forest." I looked around. Trees. No buildings. I tried calling my phone. No signal. Days later, when I finally got to a town, I tried searching the riverside and online. Nothing. No listings. No records. I called the conference hotel. They had no idea what I was talking about. I've never been back to Seattle. But sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I hear a faint knocking on my bedroom window. And when I look outside, I swear I see a door. A door with the same symbol, a circle with a slash. And the whisper. You forgot to leave.